Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and this is Let's Live with Thurman Greco, coming to you on scenic Woodstock, New York's Educational Channel 23, and also coming to you on YouTube. And we've got a political season going, so we have candidates. And this evening we have such a lovely candidate. Laura, would you introduce yourself for a moment?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Thurman, for inviting me here. And we don't see Ellen behind the camera, but Ellen is fabulous. And thank you both for inviting me here. My name is Laura Ricci. I've been a Woodstock resident since 1980, and I've been on the town board. This is my second term. They're 4-year terms. I'm a town council member, 4-year terms. So I ran in 2015. I started serving on the board January 1st of 2016 and totally enjoyed it. It's an honor and a privilege to serve the people of Woodstock. I don't take it for granted, and it certainly is quite the campaign season this year, like none other, but there's a lot going on.
You know, that's one of the nice things about Woodstock. There's always a lot going on.
Yes.
You know, and it's different every election. Do you still go out and campaign after all these years?
Absolutely. I not only do I campaign for myself, but every year I'm out. I'm part of the Woodstock Democratic Committee, which I've been a full member. We were just talking before we started airing here, either 2010 or 2011. I'm not quite sure exactly when, but around then. And I'm part of Amy Fraden is a member of the Woodstock Democratic Committee, and she runs what we call a neighbor-to-neighbor program, where she's helping people have lists to go knock on doors with to share information about elections, and I'm part of the neighbor-to-neighbor program. So every year I'm knocking on doors to share whatever Democrats are running, I'm sharing the information, and the information about election days, the candidates, and trying to inspire the Democrats of Woodstock to get out and vote for our candidates. We've had a lot of great candidates through the years. So I certainly do. I campaign every year for whoever's running that year for Democrats.
Well, you know, the thing that's so nice about campaigning is you talk to people. What have you been hearing this season?
Well, this this season, 10 Church Road is a big topic this season. So that's probably the biggest topic. Where I guess I don't know what you want me to tell you about. I could
whatever.
Talk, I could talk all day.
Because I haven't heard
seconds.
I haven't heard about 10.
Really?
Church Road.
Okay. So I'll tell you what I know about 10 Church Road, because I've gotten more involved lately. I've been busy on a lot of other things, and 10 Church Road. Try to do a quick history. In late 2019, early 2020, the property owner at 10 Church Road talked to their neighbor on Reynolds Lane and said, hey, they were on a slope. So I'll do it so you can see it on TV. So here's the property, here's where the house is at 10 Church Lane. There's a slope, here's the house on Reynolds Lane, and then there's a slope, and then there's Reynolds Lane. So the house on Reynolds Lane is at like the only flat spot on the property almost, and then the house on Church Road is on the flat spot up here. But the Church Road people said, you know, it's hard to mow and maintain the yard, it's a slope. Wouldn't it be great to bring in some fill and make our yard flat? And I haven't spoken to Frank Amy about this, but the neighbor on 10 Church Road said he asked Frank Amy before doing it, and Frank didn't have an issue. And but the thing is, there certainly was an issue once all the fill came in, because it had contaminants in it. It had construction debris, which is illegal. So what you had is now a flat space, what should have been a retaining wall, and the property on Reynolds Lane having stuff falling over in their yard, and they were looking at construction debris. It was terrible, but there had to be a court ruling to force the cleanup. So this happened 2019, 2020, over the course of a couple of, I don't know, weeks, months, whatever. But then the court ruling came out January 2022 saying, yes, indeed, construction debris is there. There is a violation of Woodstock Town Code, and 10 Church Road people that were involved were found guilty. And then they went to clean it up, and it's just been remediated now, where the construction debris is gone, the slope is back the way it is, but neighbors are still worried because the fill that came in, there was a soil sample that said it did have some things that were not good, but then I think there need to be some scientific questions answered about how not good is it? Will it in fact damage people's well? Will it, because all the fill got moved from here over to there because the 10 Church Road property is 10 or more acres. So it's not near the edge anymore, but people are still worried that this lump of stuff that is considered legal, but it's still a lump of stuff that people are concerned about. So remediation progress has happened, but people are still very concerned. And I've offered to meet with the neighbors. There's one neighbor in particular who's a leader of saying, hey, we need to make sure everything is good. And I spoke to her just Tuesday after the town board meeting and said, hey, I'd like to meet with you. When Terramore happened, were you knowledgeable about Terramore?
Yes.
So Terramore was a nightmare. And I got involved. I was the Woodstock Town Board person appointed to work on Terramore. I met with Citizens Against Terramore over several weeks and a couple of months. By hearing what was said and by figuring out where to dig in, I did dig in. I found a lot of issues with it. I read Sorgety's Law. I wrote the Woodstock Statement Against Terramore that was approved by the supervisor and Reggie Earls. And I went to a Sorgety's Planning Board meeting in January of this year, and I gave Woodstock's opposition. And then I also wrote Woodstock's opposition statement that the supervisor put on his own letterhead in February. And the day after it arrived in the Sorgety's Planning Board, Terramore pulled the plug. Not just us, there were a whole slew of people, Citizens Against Terramore, Susan Painter, fabulous group of people all rowing the boat together, but I was the one on Woodstock that was vocal on it. So what I said to the neighbors at 10 Church Road was, because I did the digging I did on Terramore, I was able to build a strong opposition statement, and I was able to build a strong opinion myself of what was right and what was wrong, and that led to my opposition statement. I said I'd like to get involved with 10 Church Road and do the same digging. The remediation has happened, but this lump of fill is now in the middle of the property. It's a fair question to ask. What hazard is still there? And I'm willing to help get involved, understand their concerns, dig around and get some answers. So I've offered my services, and the woman I spoke with said she'll go talk with the group and see if they want me to do that. But I feel like I was helpful with Terramore, and if they would like me to see if I can help, I will. So the 10 Church Road situation is clearly better, but people are still worried, and I think it makes sense to go find out more about their worries, find out more about scientifically, should they be worried, how can we get evidence one way or the other, and try to get some more answers. So that's where I am on 10 Church Road, is I want to try to help get the answers people still have, to the questions people still have, and try to help. So I don't know if I told you too much or too little about 10 Church Road.
The question I have now is, since you brought up Terramore, is that still an issue?
Well, Terramore was a part of Campgrounds of America. They have pulled out of wanting to be right where they were. Is Campgrounds of America and Terramore going to be an issue someplace else, like California or here or there? I don't think they're coming back to where we are. I'll share my opinion, which is not substantiated by anybody else. However, I think they underestimated our area. I think they thought, as I've said to other people, I think they thought they were coming to some hicks from the sticks, and, well, we're just going to go pop down there, and who's going to stop us? And it was just amazing. Citizens Against Terramore was amazing. Susan Painter leading that was amazing. When I went and spoke at the Sorgety's Planning Board meeting in January, Susan Painter had lined up, and Citizens Against Terramore had lined up 20 speakers. I was one of 20, and it was one strong speaker after another, each saying something different. It was amazing how everybody had done their research, and they all had a different aspect to talk to about why it was a bad idea and why it should go away. So I do not expect that Terramore, Campground of America, will try to repeat anything right here, but they're still a company, and I'm sure they're looking for their next target.
Well, is there any interest in the community about what's going to happen to this parcel of land now?
There is interest. I haven't been following as closely since Terramore did pull back. The Woodstock Land Conservancy was looking at it. I think that the Citizens Against Terramore was hoping with the Woodstock Land Conservancy, that they may be able to, they buy up land and they preserve it. So the amount that Terramore paid for, I forget what the price tag was, but it's not what Woodstock Land Conservancy has in their pocket. And I think they're hoping that they can, the last I knew, but it's been several months, I thought the Woodstock Land Conservancy was hoping they could negotiate an agreement and pick it up and preserve it. But I really have been a little away from that. I don't know where that stands and what exactly is going to happen to it at this point. But I do know everybody's watching.
When you go out and talk to the people, or when they contact you, what are the top issues?
But besides 10 Church Road.
Yeah.
It was interesting when I went out for petitioning. Well, people always talk about taxes, and I did say, well, for taxes, be aware when you do get your tax bill in January that it has several things on it, which are not Woodstock. So Woodstock has control over the Woodstock taxes, but you also get, well, your school tax, of course, comes in September. But when you get the January bill, you're going to get the library tax, and the library, of course, has its own board, it's its own district, and people vote for the library budget. So that's a line when you get the Woodstock bill, quote unquote. It includes the library line, it includes a county line, it includes fire district. That's another thing. Fire has its own board. People vote. In the case of fire district, my understanding is people do not vote for the budget for the fire district. They vote for the commissioners, and the commissioners set the budget. So when you get your Woodstock tax bill, it's got fire on it, it has library, it has county, it has Woodstock. And I can say, and what I appreciate about Supervisor McKenna is, and he's been supervisor, I'm trying to remember what year. I started in 2016. Was it January 2017 or January 2018? I don't recall exactly when Jeremy passed. But Bill McKenna has been supervisor since then. He has always kept the budget every year within the tax cap, and he has always kept the spend within the budget, and I definitely appreciate that. So when people do talk to me as I've knocked on doors and say, well, the taxes, everybody would love to have the taxes be lower, but I think Supervisor McKenna has been wonderfully responsible at keeping, again, he keeps the budget for the next year within the tax cap, and he has always kept the spend within the budget. So that's another issue that people have talked about.
You know, I am always ready to defend the taxes that we spend. I came from the DC metro area, and we spent much more and got much less.
Yeah.
And to me, there is nothing more beautiful than to see the trucks out with the, when it's snow time. And to see the work on the roads, and to see what happens in New York State and in the Hudson Valley and in Ulster County. I really feel like we get a lot for our money. So I have a hard time, I always have to put that in. It's all relative. The question I have at this moment.
Quiet in a moment here.
Oh, that's okay. This is educational TV. This is live.
I can mute it though.
The question that I have is, you did bring up the fire.
Yes.
Is anybody in this town have any questions about the firehouse, about the fires, volunteers, about anything? Is it on the radar screen at all?
Well, I'll give you two answers. The first answer is, people haven't been talking about the fire department, but the second answer is the town of Woodstock has zero control. It's a separate district. Just like the library is a separate district, and I am liaison, I'm town board liaison to the library. It's a separate district, so they make their own decisions. The people vote in, fire and the library the same way. People vote in who leads those groups, and those groups lead themselves. They're a separate district. So I haven't been hearing people talking about the fire department, but if they did, they would have to go speak to the commissioners.
The reason I ask is because I haven't heard anything. And we don't, it's volunteer.
Well, I think there are some paid. I believe the secretary is paid, very few paid.
Yeah.
But absolutely, and we're lucky to have them.
And do you know if they have enough volunteers?
Well, that's the other thing people do talk about is short-term rentals, because the issue with short-term rentals is when we have long-term rentals, we have people that live here and we have more volunteers. And so people are always, I don't know enough about the fire department to know exactly today, do they have enough volunteers today? But there's a lot of conversation about, with the short-term rentals that we have, the degree that we have them, it's hurting volunteers in general. So I can't answer specifically, does the fire department have enough volunteers today? But I certainly can answer to say, we need to make sure we have the right balance of short-term rentals, because we need long-term renters, because we need volunteers not only in the fire department, but also the library board, but also this town runs on volunteers. I love the volunteer committees. I am the liaison to the Complete Streets Committee. I actually chair the Zoning Revision Committee. I'm liaison to the Woodstock Environmental Commission. Again, I'm liaison to the library. And all of those groups are volunteers. And they do fabulous things for this town. So we certainly always want to have a steady set of volunteers. I used to be on the planning board. Those are volunteers. Zoning Board of Appeals. Tons of wonderful volunteers. Complete Streets Committee, I think I maybe mentioned that. I'm liaison to Complete Streets Committee. Tons of volunteers. So the short-term rental comes into play with that, and we need to make sure we have the right balance. There is a revamping of the short-term rental law happening now. There is a short-term rental committee, because we put the law in. Richard Hepner did a great job being involved in leading a lot of what happened with housing and short-term rentals. And we put the law in place with the statement that we're going to go look at this law some number of years in the future. Let's go look at the law, see how it's working. It's being looked at now. The short-term rental committee is looking at it. As chair of the Zoning Revision Committee, we've been in a position to take on, as laws have matured a bit, the Zoning Revision Committee in a lot of cases has taken on laws that maybe somebody else has written, and we want to bring it across the finish line. We want to tidy it up, polish it up, and bring it. So the short-term rental law will very likely come to the Zoning Revision Committee. It hasn't actually come yet, but there is work on that right now to try to make sure we have the right laws in place. The other thing people are talking about is noise. And Supervisor McKenna himself is leading a group on noise, on the noise ordinance, to take a look at what's right there. And there's another case. What people say is, well, you know, for the drum circle, years ago we had people all sit around the table and came up with a solution that everybody could live with. And I think that's what we also need for the noise ordinance, because people have differing views, and it just depends on who you are and what your perspective is. If you're one of the businesses in town that brings in live music, and that's part of how you survive as a business, you of course want you want the ability to do music and in different ways. If you're somebody who may be an octogenarian who's lived next door to one of these venues for the last 50 years, and you say, I just can't have that music. So I understand both sides of it. So it'll be interesting to find a good answer that everybody thinks is the right answer. But again, noise is something Supervisor McKenna is personally leading the group focused on noise, to try to, because people have spoken a lot about noise, and to try to find an answer. And the drum circle, people used to complain, and oh my God, it's going on all the time. And then we had that cadence of, well, you're going to be these hours on a Sunday, this many Sundays, and go for it. And the drum circle is great. Tourists love it. It's a big, you see people with, the tourists, because they all have their cameras, around the drum circle. But so I think the noise ordinance can have a good answer, just like the drum circle had a good answer. And that's another thing people have been talking about that Supervisor McKenna himself is taking the lead on.
That's good, because I was going to ask you about that, and I'm asking you now, what about sidewalks and speed limits? They seem to go together. They're two different situations, but they are closely entwined. Yeah. Do you hear anything?
Yes. As liaison to the Complete Streets Committee, beautifully run by Grace Murphy, and we have a great group of volunteers on that, the Complete Streets Committee came out of the comprehensive plan. I'll tangent a little bit here. But in my first term, when I ran for my first term, I ran on really two things. First of all, there ought to be a crosswalk between the town hall and the other side of the street. Having the town hall on one side of the street and town parking on the other side of the street just was crazy, and we ought to have a crosswalk. And by the end of my first term, I kept bringing it up, and Supervisor McKenna found the money. when the Mill Hill Road project happened, if you'll recall, the paving, and I think there was a lot of work done there. So when the Mill Hill Road project got done, sidewalks there got addressed and a lot more parking went in. But the other thing that I campaigned on 8 years ago was we ought to have a comprehensive plan. I was on the planning board, and they kept saying, if we had the comprehensive plan was 60 years old. And they said we should have a current comprehensive plan so we as a planning board know what direction we should be setting as we make decisions for cases that come before us. And I campaigned on the comprehensive plan. Jeremy, I believe, was the one, Jeremy started the work on it, and I'm not recalling who exactly put the comprehensive plan committee in place. Was it Jeremy or Supervisor McKenna? But in 2018, the comprehensive plan was approved, and from what I also did, I'm a professional project manager, and so what I do is I think, well, here we are, here's where we want to go, how do we get there? We had a comprehensive plan that had a whole section 4 that said what should the plans be, and I listed who should get these to-dos. We have 4 pages, whatever it was, of to-dos, who should get them, and I sat with Supervisor McKenna, and then he formalized who was going to get which thing, and that's when the Complete Streets Committee became created, the Zoning Revision Committee was created, the Housing Committee was created, because most of what came out of the comprehensive plan had committees that could pick those items up, but we needed those 3 committees to do the other things. So Complete Streets came out of the comprehensive plan, I became the liaison. The idea of Complete Streets is let's focus on people moving through Woodstock. They can be pedestrians, they can be bicyclists, they can be people that have mobility impaired, they can be people driving, they need places to park. And so the Complete Streets is focused on that. They, again, led by Grace Murphy, they came forth with a Complete Streets policy for the town, and that got approved. So they've moved forward there, and they're very focused on the sidewalks. They're very focused on pedestrian and bicyclists. What's happening, Mill Hill Road project happened. What is going to happen is there'll be a Tinker Street project where a similar thing is going to happen. Well, similar but different because it's a different stretch of road. But for 100-year flood reasons and for potential flooding reasons, the Tinker Street there are 4 bridges that are going to be replaced. There are going to be sidewalks will be redone. It'll go from Rock City Road all the way out to Schoonmaker Lane in terms of the paving, in terms of that's where the 4 bridges are, and sidewalks. And so Grace and the Complete Streets Committee members, and I've joined them, have met with the New York State DOT to talk about what are we doing about how can you get a bicycle. We know that the library is going to 10 Dixon Avenue. How can we get a bicycle going from there to here? Well, that project isn't budgeted to go to 10 Dixon Avenue, it's budgeted to go to Schoonmaker, but how can we get a bicycle lane from here to Schoonmaker? Because then maybe we get somebody else to fund a bicycle lane and good pedestrian all the way. So part of what the Complete Streets Committee also did is they came to the town board and asked for the speed limit to get reduced. So the speed limit in the middle of town is 30 miles an hour, 212 is a New York State road. They don't like reducing the speed limit below 30 miles an hour. That's kind of a default. You're not going to be below 30. But if you build a case, they'll consider it. So the Complete Streets wrote a resolution, asked the board to pass it, which the board did, to ask New York State to look at lowering the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. And I'm certainly in full support of that. And that would be for the section that's 30 miles an hour now. And that will definitely help, I think, make things a little safer. And if you even went 30 miles an hour, you'd be knocking over people and cars and everything, because when you go through the middle of town, it's not really a 30-mile-an-hour road. It's really less, in my opinion. So yes, there's a focus on reducing the speed limit, thanks to Complete Streets Committee, a focus on sidewalks, thanks to Complete Streets Committee, a focus on all those things, thanks to the supervisor and working with New York State DOT, and I'm on that too. I'm paired with the supervisor on looking at the Tinker Street project to try to really address it, to be as good as we can for pedestrians, bicyclists, cars, etc. So besides fixing the flood thing with the 4 bridges, that's a focus area. They're in the planning stage now, and I'm not sure exactly when they're going to get to doing it. But the other thing, I know I'm on a tear here, but the other thing I do want to talk about, is I worked with Arlene Weissman and people from Woodstock Community Thermal to get a grant that we submitted in August of last year, and it just got approved, to try to do community thermal. And the great thing about getting the grant approved, and the great thing about the Tinker Street project not being done yet, it may be that when the road's all torn up, we can be tying together properties for how to tie together thermal solutions for properties that once the road's paved, you don't really want to tear it back up again. But that's the other thing that I've been involved with, is because as liaison to the WEC, I was part of that team. Again, Arlene, me, 3 people from the Woodstock Community Thermal group, and also CHA is the company who actually coordinated the submission and is actually doing the work on designing community thermal. So we just got the grant like a month ago. We submitted back in August. It just came through like a month ago. But we're pretty excited about that, and that ties into the work on Tinker Street. So there's a lot going on.
Is anybody talking about speed limits and sidewalks on cross streets?
The Complete Streets Committee is concerned about some cross streets, like if you come up Tannery Brook Road and there's not a sidewalk. So there are certain pockets of areas where the Complete Streets Committee is focused on. So that's how I would answer that question. Some side streets, yes. There's not a big conversation on all the side streets, but there are some side streets that seem particularly hazardous. And the wish also is that on 375 you could ride your bike safely or even walk. Because I actually live down near, I guess it's Woodstock, it used to be Tischler Dental and now it's Woodstock Dental, and it's right across from the Maverick Townhome. So I live off of Witch Tree Road, and I have a neighbor moved in right next door, and they're from the city, and they used to walk all the time in the city. When they walk here, they walk into Woodstock. They walk down Witch Tree Road, and they come out on Chestnut Hill Road and go on 212, because even though it's closer to take 375, they won't walk on it. So having 375 be a safer road is also a focus area. But the town roads, Tannery Brook is a big focus area. A lot of them I haven't heard as much about speed limits. But Complete Streets, if Grace were here, she may have a more full answer on that.
Okay. So what else are we talking about?
So, well, let me go to. I brought my list.
What about the library? You brought that up.
I'm very impressed. Jeff Collins and the library board. I am very impressed because maybe I shouldn't share my position, but my position has been, I've been liaison ever since Kathy Magarelli left the town board. She was library liaison, I became liaison. And as I've gotten more involved, and I went to some library meetings before that, but I hear the library board when they say they just can't give premier library services out of that building. I hear them when they say that. And the building does have issues. And they've been saying that for decades. And I applaud the library board for continuing to look at different solutions. And I did the tour, it was just a couple of weekends ago, at 10 Dixon Avenue. And I think that, and the people voted for it. The people voted for the bond to say, let's go to 10 Dixon Avenue. And I think that they'll really be able to give premier library services for Woodstock that will serve us well for the next 50 or 100 years. That the building that they're in today, I hear them when they say there's mold. They don't have space. The director has to leave her office when the writing group wants a private space to meet. The director's got to leave her office. There are just issues that weren't going to get solved, in my opinion, in that building. I know different people have different opinions, but the people did vote, and they voted for the 10 Dixon Avenue solution. And I do believe, I wish that it could have stayed right in the center of town, but the library, in my opinion, is in place to give premier library services to the people of Woodstock. And they believed they couldn't do it. And over decades they believed it, with the board rotating people in and out. And the board continually, even though it was different people, had their conclusion was this building just isn't going to serve us well for the next 50, 100 years. So the people did vote for 10 Dixon Avenue. I think it's a great space. I did the tour of it. I think that it will give, they were able to have solutions for people of all ages, the children, the toddlers, the middle school, the mid-age school children, the teenagers. They have spaces for people. They'll have rooms where if you have your writing class and you want to speak privately about what you wrote with your little group, they have rooms for that. The director's going to have an office. We'll even have a table in it. She can have a conference in her office. So, they have more than one kitchen space. They have a kitchen space upstairs and downstairs.
What about bathrooms?
They have, they're pretty good on bathrooms. They have several, and they also have an elevator. That's the other thing. I'm trying to remember where all the bathrooms were, and I don't have a complete picture of that. I believe they have at least one upstairs and one or more downstairs, and an elevator so that you can get to whatever is going on that you want to attend. There are people that can't do the stairs, and the elevator will be their answer.
And what about computer space in the library?
They have a bay. They had an area for that. And I'm not. You may want to invite Jeff Collins because he could give you a lot of answers. My recollection is that they did have a computer bay area. I'm very sure they do. I think they also had a Make It space, because that's a big thing now, is having the Make It space, where I don't know what all they'll have in it, but some Make It spaces have sewing machines and things that if you want to learn how to do something, you can go there and do it. So I'm sure that they will have a computer area. I don't have a complete answer. I can't give you a factual answer of how many computers. Do you need to bring your own and just plug in, or how many will they have for you? That would be a Jeff Collins question.
Well, I wasn't asking for myself. I was asking.
Okay.
I was asking for people who have asked me. What do you hear about? What do you hear about bathrooms?
What do I hear? There's a good question. The town has 2 community bathrooms. If you go to the town hall, there's one, and if you're over by the Commerce Center, or whatever you call that, over there by the main parking lot. So the town does have bathrooms. I haven't heard a lot about bathrooms, and I know that the town hall bathroom is open all year round, and the other one by the parking lot's open a lot of the year. I can't say for sure. Is it open every month in the wintertime? I'm not totally certain about that, but certainly the one at the town hall is open year round, and I have not heard a lot about bathrooms.
That's interesting.
But have you been hearing a lot about bathrooms?
Yes.
Oh, well, what have you been hearing about
That
bathrooms?
there are not enough.
Okay.
That there are not enough. That when the tourists come, there is no place.
Okay.
And unless they're going to eat in a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but it's an interesting thing, because sometimes people just come up to you. They have no idea who you are.
Right. Yeah.
And so we have so many changes that we have experienced. We went through COVID.
Oh,
and
yes.
now we have gone through all these new residents. Have you met a lot of them?
The new residents.
Yes.
I am on the road that I'm on has 4 houses on it, and everybody is new within the last 5 years.
Yes.
Except for me. I've been there since 1980, and the other 3 neighbors are within the last 5 years.
Yes. It's really, really interesting how the neighbors have changed,
Mm-hmm.
and the Airbnb portion of the neighbors have changed as well.
Sure.
It's, we are really moving along.
Yes. Yeah. So there is turnover. There's a combination. I guess I don't know for sure. The assessor's office, I'm sure, would know. They would know what are all the changes in the property ownership. They would probably have some numbers on that. So I don't know offhand, but I do know there are quite a few people that have been here for a very long time, but there are also quite a few people that are new. So I don't have a numerical answer of what the balance is, but yes, there's certainly plenty of new people, but plenty who've been here for a while. And you've been here for a while.
Yeah, I have been, yes. And so I would like to say, what are some things that you have heard that I haven't asked about?
Well, I know the other thing that we're going to work on is signs. People have come to the town board and said, well, there's a sign law, it's a little restrictive, and businesses say, I can't put my sandwich sign outside, but people in the off months of the year don't know that I'm open, and if I could put my sandwich board sign out, then they would know to walk down the street and they could come in my business. So signs is the other thing that we're getting a committee on that's going to look at, and that's a zoning revision committee item also, that will come as the chair of that. The committee is being formed and we'll take a look at the signs. And even if you look at the bear, which I love looking at the wall of the bear, and even Colony, I think Colony has Colony written on the side. So the maximum size of a sign is supposed to be 10 square feet. But I love the bear on the side of the Bearsville building. And, you know, Colony, you know, you want to put your name on your building. I mean, so some of the things make a lot of sense to me. So we did want to do a moratorium to say, hey, we're just going to do a moratorium on the crackdown on signs. Let's spend some time looking at what, again, balance. Things are put in place back in the 80s. Laws have changed since then, but things made sense back then. And now that things are evolving, as you say, people are evolving, right? The community is evolving. There are a lot of things in the zoning law, and like the housing is the other big thing. But there are a lot of things in the zoning law that we're looking at. So the other thing that we didn't talk about yet, is I'm also on the Housing Oversight Task Force, and that is a big deal right now because the zoning law was put together in the 80s. There have been tweaks through the years, but the two things that came out of the comprehensive plan were, and being on there, and I remember we did the survey, and what were the survey results?
Listen, Laura,
Yes.
you spilled the beans right here. Tell us all about it, because that's what everybody's talking about.
Well, so I've been on the Housing Oversight Task Force. It's been a 2-year effort, and that also came out of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, the two major things people of Woodstock said is we need more affordable housing, and we want to protect the environment. The open spaces are very important to us. So those two missions is what the Housing Oversight Task Force has gone forward with. And the Housing Oversight Task Force is made up of 7 people, led by Kirk Ritchie and Deborah Dewan, who have been great leaders, with Nan Stolzenberg as a wonderful consultant who has helped us along the way and written updates. But the zoning law is about we alter the subdivision law and the zoning law. So between the two, it's about 300 pages. It had a lot of updates. We revamped a lot of it to try to address the affordable housing. The people, and we just turned it over to the town of Woodstock in the middle of April. There will be a meeting on the 30th of this month in the community center. I believe it's 6:30 to 8:30. I would say go to Hudson Valley 1 to confirm. But it will be all of us on the Housing Oversight Task Force, also people from the Housing Committee. Two things. Housing Committee is different from Housing Oversight Task Force. Housing Committee said they're in place to help housing overall in Woodstock. And they have several initiatives to do that. Home Shares Initiative, the fund, the Housing Alliance Fund. Let's update the zoning to make it easier. So the Housing Oversight Task Force is addressing the zoning part of the initiatives. The other initiatives, they're doing great. Housing Committee is doing a fabulous job moving forward. Susan Goldman, and Catherine, I think is the name of the relatively new chair there. In any event, the Housing Committee is doing great, but we're missioned with the zoning. So we turn this over the middle of April, and it's all the updated subdivision law, the updated zoning law are both on the town website in 2 forms. The red line forms, you can see what changed. The clean copy forms, you just want to read what it looks like today. They're both up there along with about a dozen supporting documents to explain overviews, big picture, what's it doing. So all that is there, and the people have had it since the middle of April. I hear people, I read letters in Hudson Valley 1, oh, they were so secretive. The Housing Oversight Task Force met in the secret. Why is everything a big secret? Nothing is a secret because we wanted to work in a way that was not distracted. So we did work, the 7 of us focused heads down, but we did also have community meetings. We started out interviewing people in the community, find out what's on their minds. We met, and Kirk Ritchie and Deborah Dewan went to every committee in Woodstock and talked about, and the first draft was made available in May 30th of last year. So the first draft has been out there for almost a year, and the second draft, which just came out in April, is not a full revamp. We listened to what the committee said. The first draft went out.
Well-
Kirk and Deborah went to every committee, heard what they said. We worked almost a year to revamp and put the new thing out. What's out there is out there for everybody to see. The town board is not steamrolling over. The town board, and I was on the House Oversight Task Force, I want to hear what the people have to say. Just because 7 people thought it was a good idea, there may be things that, when we hear the feedback, there may be things that we want to still change. So that's the reason for the meeting on the 30th, is to have a two-way conversation with people about what is put out there. We may have met quietly, but nothing that we've done is a secret, because our end result is out there for everybody to see. The first result has been out there for a year. The second result is out there today. People should look at all of it and tell us what they think.
Well, that's a very interesting take, because I've heard all kinds of things, but I haven't heard that you're meeting in secret. And I guess my issues are that I haven't been reading the Hudson Valley one that closely. And on just a practical thing, if you're going to really get something done, you've got to have a group of people sitting around a table with not very much in the way of distractions.
Right. And that was the decision that was made, was the work that we had to do was so big, and it was big, and that was the reason why the meetings, because, you know, when things leak out, all of a sudden everybody's talking about it, and then you have, and even if it's a decision that we haven't even come to a decision yet, if we're thinking about 5 different things, people may take the 5 different things, and you're then trying to do damage control about things that people brainstormed and threw out that aren't even going to be done. And the thought was, we're going to give the people of Wichita the answer, and everybody will have time to review it, tell us what they think, rather than looking at every step of the way. What were the 500 things we discussed in the meetings? Let's just give the answer, let everybody digest it, and then see what the next steps are.
Well, how do you think that's going?
Well, I think, one thing I think is it's a very, as we started out in the conversation, it's a very political season. I forget if we said that when we started to air, or whether it was when we were chit-chatting before.
Well, but you know what? It's always a very political season at Woodstock.
Yeah.
You know, really.
Yes.
And that's a plus and a minus.
It's people speak their mind, but I will be very happy. Well, people know I'm here. I'm running for office. The primary is June 27th. I do ask for your vote. I asked for your vote for Supervisor McKenna. I asked for your vote for Nula Cordes. That being said, there are other people running. There are 2 people running for supervisor for 1 seat. There are 4 people running for town council for 2 seats. And the primary is June 27th. I am so looking forward to that day coming and going, because there is so much politicking. There is so much stuff that is not good and not even accurate being, it's not Hudson Valley One's fault. They're quoting what people say, but people are saying things that I read what they're saying, and I know the facts, and I know that what's being said is for political reason. I also know that some things that are being said in Hudson, Hudson Valley One quotes what people say. So this person said this, they quote so-and-so said this. It's an accurate quote. And letters to the editor, I believe in freedom of speech. Everybody can write a letter to the editor. I'm just saying that as I read these letters to the editor, and as I read things, there's a lot of politics happening. And as I read what people are quoted as saying in Hudson Valley One, and as I read letters to the editor, in some cases, if somebody had done more homework, they would have reached a different conclusion, because they don't know all the facts. They're picking out this and that, and they don't know the full picture, and that's why they say what they do. I also believe in some cases they are politicking and choosing to ignore the facts that don't support themselves and just share the facts that do. Sometimes they're facts, and sometimes it's a piece of truth that is so out of context that when seen by itself, it gives people the wrong impression. And I wrote a letter to the editor that got published in the paper this week, to say exactly that. Is I know what's being written in the paper, and I will be so happy. And I don't know how the election's going to go. I do not know who's going to win. We'll find out after June 27th. But I do believe a lot of garbage is going to end, because people are politicking. All the stuff that's being said in the paper, honestly, I get trashed. I read the paper. Did a letter trash me this week? Did somebody get quoted in an article that trashed me this week? I'm not going to respond to everything that gets said, because even though I know what the truth is, and it would be nice if everybody really spoke the truth, but we have freedom of speech, and people get to say what they want to say, and I totally believe in freedom of speech. So there we have it. And so I'm doing my best to get the word out. So getting back to the whole housing task force and what do people think about the law, I am so looking forward to June 27th coming and going, because then I think we'll really know a lot better. People will be giving more honest opinions, I believe, because I do think there's a lot of politicking going on right now about do you like it or don't you like it, and people grandstanding and whatnot. It's a very intense time. I ran 4 years ago, I ran 8 years ago. I'll vent slightly, but then I'll get off the venting.
No, that's good.
I will say 4 years ago and 8 years ago, I do not recall anybody saying anything about me that was not true. And I read Hudson Valley One now, and I keep reading these quotes and letters to the editor about things where people do know better. I know the people. I know what they know. I know they know better. And they still write what they write because they have an agenda. So it's a very different political season from what it was 4 years ago and 8 years ago, because we all just ran on what our positions were and why we think we're best for Woodstock. We weren't trying to dig a hole under the other candidate to make ourselves look better. And it's a fact of this political season. It's how I see it. And I get freedom of speech too, so that's how I see it. And if I use my freedom of speech, I will say, I would just be so happy when June 27th comes and goes. I work very hard for the people of Woodstock. So does Supervisor McKenna. And if you do read Hudson Valley One, very often there's somebody that's not happy about something. And if they went behind closed doors, or it doesn't have to be, it can be an open door for that matter, if they went one-on-one, a lot of things would get solved. But some people would rather stand on the side and complain than go actually fix the problem, because it's to their benefit to have there be a problem. And that's why they'd rather stand on the side and complain than go fix it. And I definitely appreciate the people that are in there rowing the boat and working on fixing the problems, because those people are here as well. So I'll try to have that be it for my venting.
Well, I think, for one thing, you're on a lot of committees.
Yes.
And you have been on a lot of,
Yes.
that work goes back for years. You cannot do that much work and not get complaints.
Well, there's very, very well said.
You just can't. If you stand there and don't say anything and don't do anything, then nobody can say anything.
Right.
So,
But this year the complaints have been loud, whereas most years people may complain, but they come in and we work it out. So that's kind of the difference between this year and other years. Is you're right, when you're on different committees and you're doing things, you're totally correct. There may be somebody somewhere that doesn't like it, but in seasons other than this political season, people are more likely to try to be part of the solution. They say, well, I don't really like that, can we work it out? And I find, and even when I work with Supervisor McKenna, we're not always on the same page to begin with, but he listens to me, I listen to him. We say, well, how can we get a solution when we're doing resolutions for the town board? He'll try to get people, the different town board members, he'll share what he thinks is the right way to go. He listens to what people say, and modifications do happen based on what people say. So I'm a believer in collaboration. I think collaborative is the way to go. I think combative is not the way to go. And we're seeing some combative times right now when collaborative gets more done. And so I'm all in favor of collaborative. I'm all in favor of collaboration. And more happens that way. So when people do disagree, let's all talk together. And that's what I tried to do with the 10 Church Road with the neighbors, is I said, if you want me to, I'll try to be part of the solution. I'll try to come hear what your concerns still are. Let's go try to find some answers. Because you're right, people in Woodstock especially, and I love it about Woodstock, people don't hold back. They do say what they think, but by people saying what they think, that's how we can get the best answer. And I want to work with people to take their input and get the best answer. When people have the best interest of Woodstock at heart, those are my favorite times, because then I want to jump in and we're all working for the same thing. If there's a personal agenda, that's a different matter. But I am happy to work anytime with anybody who really wants the best for Woodstock. I'm all in, and I want to help get what's best for Woodstock.
I think the combative approach is fashionable now.
Yeah, and we have somebody who was in office for 4 years, and we haven't recovered yet from those 4 years at the top. Our president.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
That we haven't recovered from the guy that was.
Oh, you're talking about the national?
At the national level.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, at the national level, we haven't recovered yet from the guy we had
from
2016 to 2020.
Yeah, that's not good.
Things went in a unfortunate direction, and we have not yet recovered as a country.
Right, and that has a way of trickling down.
Yeah.
We are running out of time.
Oh dear.
Time. I know. Listen, it's gone fast.
Where did that time go?
But I do want to ask, because it's been big in the Hudson Valley. We haven't brought it up. What about the school?
Oh, well, I'll go to my two answers.
Okay.
The one answer, again, is it's a different district, and we as a town board, we can't tell the school district what to do. There is a totally separate district. They don't tell us what to do. By law, they can't, and by law, we can't tell them what to do. I certainly, if I had a wish, I would wish that the Woodstock School would stay open. I know people that are involved in the school district are looking at the numbers, and this gets back to short-term rental versus long-term rental. If you have all short-term rentals, you're not going to have students around. So if we can have people that can afford to live here, there'll be more students and there'll be more vitality, and it will keep more schools open. So I would love to see the Woodstock School stay open for a good long time, and it is what it is. If the numbers dwindle, but the thing about it is we're not seeing our school taxes going down. So the numbers may be going down for the number of students, and they say, well, we have to save money by closing this school or that school. But we're still paying an awful lot of money for our school taxes. So in any event, if I had a wish, it would be for the Woodstock School to stay open. But I also understand that the people that are trying to run the school board, they know all the numbers, they know the ins and outs, and we get to vote for who they are. And I will say, I guess we'll just see whether we have a new board, and we'll see what they're able to do. They may find that their hands are tied as well. I think the previous board thought their hands were tied. The new board may come to realize their hands are also tied, but I'd certainly like to see us try to keep the Woodstock School open. I think that's very important for Woodstock.
Years ago, in another time, in another place, I was moving forward in my young career, and I had a company, and I had a lawyer, and he called me into his office one time, and he said to me, not every decision is a money decision.
Well, there you go.
And he said the wisdom lies in knowing the difference. And
right.
And when I think about closing the school, and I know that when I moved to Woodstock, that was one of the first issues. That was probably the first issue that I really got involved in. When you don't have a school in a community, people who are looking for that first-rate investment in their home, they want to know where's the school, where's the shopping, where's the this, but where's the school is first on the list.
Sure, absolutely.
And of course now, with houses staying on the market one day, it doesn't seem to matter.
Right, yeah.
But real estate is a kind of an up and down thing, and when it kind of goes down, and there's no school,
yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
So when you think about it in the long term, that's what I'm thinking about.
And very well said what you said before, is not everything is a money decision.
Right.
And it's having your young children go to a school that's 10 minutes away rather than 40 minutes away is a big deal.
Listen, it isn't just 10 minutes or 40 minutes. I'm looking at this house, and I've got this real estate agent, and I'm saying, well, now tell me about this. What about the schools? Because one of the things that I heard, and of course I don't have any children in the school, so it's not an important thing, but I heard that Red Hook has the best schools.
Oh, okay.
So, I've heard people say, gee, I want to go to Red Hook.
Yeah.
And, when my daughter was looking for a house, we looked in Red Hook.
Yeah.
And, I heard the schools in Red Hook are very good.
Yeah.
So, that is a factor.
Sure,
And
yes.
if you got a housing market in the slump, and we do
Sure.
have that occasionally in
Right,
Woodstock,
sure.
then you don't have a school. We go down the road. So we're down to 5 minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay, well listen, we're down to 5 minutes. So what's your final take, girl?
Oh, my final take? Or
Yeah.
my final message? Or
Your final message.
My final message. Well, first of all, thanks so much to you. Thanks so much to Ellen for inviting me here. I want to thank all the people that have been helping Bill, Anula, and myself. We do have, where do we have it? Oh, somewhere in here. I will give you, there we go. I will give you, we have a brochure that we've been sharing with people. We have a meet and greet tomorrow. If you're watching this live, you will be able to come to the meet and greet tomorrow. Tomorrow is, in case you're watching this on a recording, tomorrow, which is Saturday, which is May 27th, from 10 to noon in the community center. And then our next meet and greet is going to be, and I may get this wrong, it's either Monday or Tuesday, but read the Woodstock Times, I think or the Hudson Valley One, it'll tell you. But we're in the community center again from 6 to 8. And gosh, I should know, is it Monday or Tuesday, but it's in June. It's in June, so we're trying to get the word out in Hudson Valley One to make sure you have that.
Monday.
Was that Monday?
Monday, I think the 5th.
June 5th, okay. So Monday, June 5th from 6 to 8. So for the candidates, come on out and you'll be able to ask questions of the candidates. They'll be done on cards. But in any event, we have the meet and greets. I thank everybody who has been supporting Bill, Anula, and myself. You'll see in the flyer, when you get a chance to look at it, you'll see a little bit about each one of us. I believe Bill is the clear, better answer for Woodstock for the next 2 years. He cares about Woodstock. He knows a lot. He's kept us in budget. He's had, when something needs to get addressed, he'll create a committee or a commission. He listens to what they come back with, and a lot of things have been done. As zoning revision committee, we brought a telecommunications law to help with the 5G, have some control. We brought a water protection law for the wellheads, for the Woodstock water. That got approved. I found him to be very supportive as the committee work I've done comes forth, making things happen. Anula is somebody who, she led the Human Rights Commission. She cares a lot about human rights. She runs her own company. She's a very on-the-ball person, a very can-do person. So, and I hope people vote for me as well. I've worked very hard for Woodstock. This is my 8th year, 8 years of experience. And I have been on different committees. I've led some work. I've helped with some work. I've been liaison to other work. But I've tried to make a positive difference, and I always do try to make the decision that I think is best for Woodstock. Some things are controversial, but in the end, I've made the decision because if I think something's right, that's where we go. So I do ask for your vote. I ask for your vote for myself, Supervisor McKenna, Anula Cordes. The primary is June 27th, which is a Tuesday. Do come out and vote in the primary. Democracy works best when everybody votes. Early voting is a thing, it's happening. Check the Ulster County Board of Elections website to know the places and times for early voting. I believe it starts on the 17th of Saturday, runs for 9 days, Saturday through the following Sunday. Early vote, I think Woodstock is not an early vote place this year. It was some years, but Board of Elections can tell you where and what times to early vote. But I do ask for your vote, and it'll mean a lot to Woodstock. It's a huge difference. Who you vote for makes a huge difference. I hope everybody gives it a lot of thought.
Well, I certainly thank you for coming. I don't think we've covered everything that's in that stack of papers, but we gave it a good shot. Didn't we?
Reference in case we needed it.
We gave it a good shot. Well, you'll be coming back, so bring your list in case we think of anything else.
So.
And I once again, I do want to thank Ellen. You have done such a wonderful job, Ellen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.